What if resisting the powerful grip of the International Monetary Fund, IMF, could pave the way for true economic independence? What if a country could stand up to the might of global financial institutions and say, "No more"? Burkina Faso, under the leadership of Captain Ibrahim Traoré, is doing just that. In a world where the IMF often dictates the economic policies of developing nations, Burkina Faso's defiance is not just bold, it's revolutionary. This small West African nation is challenging the very foundations of the global financial order, offering lessons that could inspire other countries to rethink their reliance on these international institutions. The IMF is known for providing financial assistance to countries in economic distress, but it comes with strings attached, strings that often choke the life out of economies rather than reviving them. Austerity measures, cuts to public spending, deregulation and privatization of state-owned enterprises are typical conditions imposed by the IMF. These policies are supposed to stabilize economies and promote growth, but what happens on the ground is often a different story. In many developing countries, these austerity measures have led to increased poverty, social unrest, and deepening economic inequalities. The IMF's approach often prioritizes debt repayment over essential public services like healthcare and education, leaving the most vulnerable to suffer the consequences. The case of Burkina Faso is particularly illuminating. For decades, this landlocked nation has grappled with numerous challenges, from political instability and internal conflict to severe economic constraints. The IMF, like in many other countries, stepped in with financial support conditioned on the implementation of austerity measures. These measures, as seen elsewhere, came at a high cost to the Burkinabe people. Public sector wages were slashed, vital social programs were cut, and essential public services were privatized. The burden of these policies was felt most acutely by those already struggling to make ends meet. But unlike many of its peers, Burkina Faso has taken an extraordinary stance. Since Captain Ibrahim Traoré came to power in 2022, he has made it clear that his government will not bow to the demands of external forces. Instead, Traoré has implemented policies that prioritize the needs of the Burkinabe people over the dictates of international financial institutions. His approach is simple yet powerful. Economic policies should serve the people, not the creditors. One of the most striking moves by Traoré's government has been its rejection of IMF-imposed austerity measures. Rather than cutting public spending, Burkina Faso has increased its investment in critical sectors like agriculture, education, and healthcare. Traoré's belief is that true economic development must be driven by the needs of the people, not by the demands of foreign creditors. By focusing on strengthening its domestic economy, Burkina Faso aims to reduce its reliance on foreign aid and loans, reclaiming its economic sovereignty in the process. This shift in policy is not just about numbers on a balance sheet. It's about reclaiming the dignity and agency of a nation. Burkina Faso's approach recognizes that economic policy cannot be divorced from the social and political realities of the people it is supposed to serve. For too long, the IMF's one-size-fits-all approach has ignored the unique contexts of the countries it seeks to assist, often exacerbating existing problems rather than solving them. Burkina Faso's decision to invest in agriculture is particularly noteworthy. As a country where the majority of the population relies on farming for their livelihood, agriculture is not just an economic sector, it's the backbone of society. By increasing support for farmers, the government is not only boosting food security, but also ensuring that rural communities, which have often been marginalized by neoliberal policies, are not left behind. This focus on agriculture also ties into a broader strategy of building a self-sufficient economy that is less vulnerable to external shocks. In education, the government's increased spending is aimed at reversing the damage done by years of austerity. By investing in schools, teacher training, and educational infrastructure, Burkina Faso is laying the groundwork for a more educated and skilled workforce, one that can drive the country's economic development in the years to come. Education is also a crucial tool for social mobility, offering the next generation the opportunities that have been denied to so many in the past. Healthcare, too, has been a major focus of the government's spending. In many countries subjected to IMF-imposed austerity, healthcare systems have been gutted, with devastating consequences for public health. By prioritizing healthcare, Burkina Faso is not only improving the well-being of its citizens, but also ensuring that the country is better equipped to handle future health crises. This is a particularly pressing issue in a region where diseases like malaria and HIV/AIDS are still prevalent, and where the threat of future pandemics looms large. But it's not just about resisting austerity. Burkina Faso has gone a step further by nationalizing key industries. Under Traoré's leadership, the government has taken control of critical sectors such as mining, energy, and telecommunications. This move allows the state to capture a larger share of the revenues generated by these industries and use them to fund social programs and infrastructure projects. Nationalization is a controversial policy, often criticized by neoliberal economists who argue that it leads to inefficiency and corruption. But in Burkina Faso, it's seen as a necessary step to ensure that the country's wealth benefits its people rather than foreign corporations. Mining is particularly important in Burkina Faso, a country rich in natural resources, particularly gold. Under previous governments, much of the wealth generated from mining went to foreign companies, with only a small fraction making its way back to the Burkinabe people. By taking control of this industry, the government can ensure that a greater share of the profits is reinvested in the country, funding development projects and reducing the need for foreign aid. The energy sector is another critical area of focus. Access to reliable and affordable energy is essential for economic development, yet in many parts of Burkina Faso, electricity remains a luxury. By nationalizing the energy sector, the government aims to expand access to electricity, particularly in rural areas, where the lack of infrastructure has been a major barrier to development. This move also ties into the broader goal of reducing dependence on foreign companies, which often prioritize profit over the needs of the local population. Telecommunications is yet another sector where the government is taking control. In an increasingly digital world, access to reliable communication networks is essential for economic and social development. By nationalizing the telecommunications sector, the government can ensure that this vital infrastructure serves the needs of the Burkinabe people, rather than being driven by the profit motives of foreign corporations. This defiance against the IMF's orthodox policies raises an important question. Is Burkina Faso offering a new model for economic development? For decades, developing countries have been forced to follow a one-size-fits-all model imposed by international financial institutions. This model, rooted in neoliberal principles, has often failed to deliver on its promises, and in many cases has worsened poverty and inequality. Traoré's leadership suggests there may be another way, one that prioritizes national sovereignty, social welfare, and sustainable development over the demands of global capital. By rejecting the IMF's prescriptions, Burkina Faso is asserting its independence and offering a fresh vision of what development could look like in the 21st century. It's a bold move that challenges the neoliberal consensus that has dominated global economic policy for so long. Before we continue, don't forget to hit that like button, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to the channel for more in-depth analysis on the world's most pressing issues. Of course, Burkina Faso's path is not without risks. The country faces significant economic challenges, including a high level of debt, limited access to international markets, and ongoing political instability. Nationalizing key industries could deter foreign investment, exacerbating the country's financial difficulties. Critics argue that by defying the IMF, Burkina Faso could find itself economically isolated, struggling to fund its development projects and maintain social stability. Moreover, the process of nationalization itself is fraught with challenges. Successfully managing these industries requires a level of expertise and governance that may be difficult to achieve in a country with limited resources. There is also the risk of corruption and mismanagement, which could undermine the very goals that the policy aims to achieve. If the government fails to manage these industries effectively, It could lead to economic inefficiencies, reduced output, and a decline in the overall standard of living. But despite these challenges, Burkina Faso's defiance is resonating far beyond its borders. Other nations, particularly in Africa, are watching closely to see if Traoré's policies succeed. If Burkina Faso can navigate its economic challenges while maintaining its independence from the IMF, it could inspire a broader movement of resistance against the imposition of neoliberal economic policies in the global south. This could lead to a significant shift in how international financial institutions operate, with more countries demanding a more flexible, country-specific approach to economic development. Burkina Faso's example could force the world to re-evaluate the role of international financial institutions in the 21st century. As more countries question the benefits of IMF-led austerity, there may be growing pressure for these institutions to reform and adopt a more adaptable, responsive approach to the needs of individual countries. The story of Burkina Faso's resistance to IMF policies is far from over, but it already offers powerful lessons for other nations. Each country must be free to choose its own path based on its unique circumstances and the needs of its people. For those grappling with the IMF's influence, Burkina Faso's example is a call to reconsider the true costs and benefits of following the prescriptions of international financial institutions. While the path of resistance is undoubtedly difficult, it may also offer a way to reclaim sovereignty, promote social welfare, and achieve a more just and equitable form of development. As Burkina Faso continues to chart its course, the world is watching closely. The lessons from this small but defiant nation could resonate far beyond its borders, challenging the status quo and opening up a vital conversation about the future of economic policy in the global south. If you believe in the importance of these discussions, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to stay informed on the latest developments. If you found this analysis insightful, share it with others who might be interested, and stay tuned for more content that digs deep into the global issues shaping our world. Your engagement helps us continue to bring you the stories that matter.